Summary of How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. Chapter 1 Live in Tight Compartments. Dale Carnegie opens his book with an insightful lesson drawn from the life of Sir William Osler, a prominent physician who significantly impacted the medical field. Osler's journey to success was profoundly influenced by a principle he discovered early in life, a principle that helped him manage his worries and achieve greatness. As a young medical student, Osler came across a passage written by the Scottish philosopher Thomas Carlyle, which would change the course of his life. The passage contained 21 words. Our main business is not to see what lies dimly at a distance, but to do what lies clearly at hand. This idea, that one should focus on the present moment rather than being consumed by anxieties about the future or regrets about the past, became Osler's guiding philosophy. Osler's interpretation of Carlyle's words led him to develop what he called living in tight compartments. He realized that just as a ship is divided into watertight compartments to prevent it from sinking, so too should we divide our lives into compartments, shutting off the past and future to concentrate fully on the present. Osler emphasized that while it is essential to plan for the future, it is equally important to avoid letting those plans and worries distract us from the work and opportunities of today. 42 years later, Osler shared this philosophy with students at Yale University, where he had been invited to speak. He explained that his success was not due to superior intellect or talent, but rather to his ability to live in tight compartments. By focusing solely on the tasks and challenges of the present day, Osler was able to minimize stress and maximize his effectiveness. He urged the students to adopt this mindset, to live each day to its fullest without being burdened by the past or paralyzed by fear of the future. Carnegie underscores this idea by drawing a parallel to a ship's captain, who controls the vessel's bulkheads to ensure the ship stays afloat, no matter what happens. In the same way, we must control our minds, sealing off yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's worries, and focusing on what we can achieve today. This, Carnegie argues, is the secret to a life free from unnecessary worry and stress. To further illustrate the power of this approach, Carnegie shares the story of a young officer in World War II, Ted Benjamino, who suffered from extreme combat fatigue due to the constant stress and worry of his duties. Ted's work involved managing records of soldiers who had been killed or were missing in action, a grim task that weighed heavily on him. His anxiety became so intense that he developed a serious health condition and lost significant weight. Ted was on the brink of a complete physical and mental breakdown when an army doctor gave him life-changing advice: think of life as an hourglass. Just as the grains of sand pass slowly and evenly through the narrow neck of the hourglass, so too should we approach our tasks, one at a time, without trying to rush or worry about what comes next. By adopting this mindset, Ted was able to regain his health and his ability to cope with the stresses of his job. Carnegie also recounts the story of Mrs. E.K. Shields, a woman who fell into deep despair after the death of her husband. Alone and struggling to make ends meet, she found herself overwhelmed by the challenges of daily life. She considered suicide, as she saw no hope for the future. However, her outlook changed when she read a simple yet profound sentence. "Every day is a new life to a wise man." This concept helped her focus on living one day at a time, rather than being overwhelmed by the enormity of her problems. By learning to take life day by day, Mrs. Shields was able to overcome her fears and find joy in her daily existence. Carnegie points out that this wisdom is not new. The Roman poet Horace, who lived before the time of Christ, expressed a similar sentiment. "Happy the man, and happy he alone, he who can call today his own, he who, secure within, can say, tomorrow, do thy worst, for I have lived today." This timeless advice has been echoed through the ages because it addresses a fundamental truth about human nature. We often sabotage our happiness by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, rather than appreciating the present. The chapter also includes the story of Edward S. Evans, a man who, after facing financial ruin, fell seriously ill due to the stress and worry about his circumstances. Evans' turning point came when he decided to accept his situation and focus on the present. By doing so, he was able to recover his health, rebuild his life, and eventually achieve significant business success. In conclusion, Carnegie urges readers to ask themselves several important questions. Are you putting off living in the present because you are worried about the future or regretful about the past? Do you wake up each morning determined to seize the day, or do you let worry cloud your mind? The chapter's central message is clear: to live a fulfilling life, we must learn to live in day-tight compartments. To focus on today and let go of the anxieties that hold us back. This chapter lays the foundation for the entire book, providing a powerful mental framework that readers can use to manage their worries and enhance their overall well-being. By adopting this approach, we can free ourselves from the burdens of past regrets and future fears, allowing us to live fully and joyfully in the present. Chapter 2: A Magic Formula for Solving Worry Situations. In Chapter 2, Carnegie introduces a practical, 3-step formula for handling worry, a method developed by Willis H. Carrier, the pioneering engineer who founded the air conditioning industry. Carrier's approach, which he shared personally with Carnegie, is a straightforward technique that anyone can use to manage anxiety and overcome difficult situations. This chapter emphasizes the importance of facing the worst-case scenario, preparing to accept it, and then calmly working to improve upon it. Carrier's formula was born out of necessity. As a young engineer, Carrier was tasked with installing a gas cleaning system at a plant owned by the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company. The project was fraught with unforeseen challenges, and the equipment failed to perform as expected. This situation left Carrier deeply worried, to the point where he couldn't sleep or concentrate. Realizing that his anxiety was getting him nowhere, Carrier decided to confront the worst-case scenario head-on. The first step in Carrier's method is to analyze the situation fearlessly and honestly and determine what the worst possible outcome could be. In Carrier's case, the worst that could happen was that he might lose his job and the company could lose the money invested in the equipment. Acknowledging this potential outcome allowed Carrier to stop his mind from spiraling out of control with worry. The second step is to accept the worst outcome, if necessary. Carrier mentally prepared himself to lose his job and reconciled himself to the possibility. By accepting this, he experienced an immediate sense of relief and peace of mind, which allowed him to think more clearly about the problem at hand. The third and final step is to calmly devote your time and energy to improving upon the worst. Once Carrier had accepted the worst-case scenario, he was able to focus on finding solutions. He experimented with various adjustments to the equipment, and ultimately devised a solution that not only salvaged the project but also led to a financial gain for his company. Instead of losing $20,000, the company ended up profiting by $15,000. Carnegie emphasizes that this formula is so effective because it helps us confront reality, dispel irrational fears, and regain our ability to think clearly. When we acknowledge the worst that can happen and prepare ourselves to accept it, we eliminate the paralyzing effects of fear and anxiety. This allows us to concentrate on finding ways to improve the situation, rather than being overwhelmed by worry. The chapter includes another example of the formula in action. Carnegie shares the story of a New York oil dealer who was being blackmailed. The dealer's drivers had been illicitly selling excess oil to customers, and a supposed government inspector demanded hush money in exchange for not turning over evidence to the authorities. The dealer was initially consumed by worry, unsure whether to pay the money or face potential legal consequences that could ruin his business. After reading Carnegie's advice, he decided to apply Carrier's formula. He accepted the worst-case scenario, that his business could be ruined by bad publicity, and then sought to improve upon it. By consulting his attorney and confronting the issue head-on, he discovered that the inspector was actually a fraud who had been running a long-standing scam. This realization saved the dealer from paying a bribe and allowed him to sleep peacefully after days of turmoil. Another poignant example involves Earl P. Haney, a man diagnosed with incurable ulcers who was told by doctors that he only had a short time to live. Instead of succumbing to despair, Haney decided to live life to the fullest. He bought a ticket for a world tour and even brought a casket along, expecting to die during the trip. However, by accepting the worst and deciding to enjoy his remaining time, Haney experienced a miraculous recovery. He returned home in good health and sold the casket back to the undertaker. His story underscores the power of Carrier's formula. By accepting the worst, Haney was able to relax and enjoy life, which in turn restored his health. Carnegie concludes the chapter by urging readers to apply this formula to their own worries. By facing the worst, accepting it, and then working to improve upon it, we can free ourselves from the grip of anxiety and find practical solutions to our problems. Chapter 3: What Worry May Do to You. Chapter 3 explores the detrimental effects of worry on both mental and physical health, drawing on the insights of medical professionals and real-life examples. He begins by highlighting how worry can lead to severe physical ailments, sometimes even more deadly than diseases like smallpox. Carnegie references the work of Nobel Prize-winning physician Dr. Alexis Carrel, who famously said, "Businessmen who do not know how to fight worry die young." This sentiment applies not only to businessmen but to people in all walks of life. Carnegie recounts a conversation with Dr. O. F. Gober, a medical executive with the Santa Fe Railway, who stated that 70% of patients could cure themselves if they only got rid of their fears and worries. Dr. Gober clarified that these patients' illnesses were not imaginary. They were real conditions like nervous indigestion, ulcers, heart problems, and insomnia. These physical symptoms, however, were primarily caused by emotional stress rather than physical factors. Carnegie cites other medical experts to support this claim. Dr. Joseph F. Montague, in his book Nervous Stomach Trouble, asserts that stomach ulcers are not caused by what we eat, but by what eats us, namely, worry and stress. Dr. W. C. Alvarez of the Mayo Clinic found that ulcers often flare up or subside based on emotional stress levels. A study at the Mayo Clinic revealed that 80% of patients treated for stomach disorders had no physical basis for their illness. Their symptoms were caused by emotions like fear, worry, and frustration. The chapter also delves into the broader impacts of worry on the body. Carnegie references Dr. Harold C. Habine of the Mayo Clinic, who studied 176 business executives and found that more than a third suffered from heart disease, ulcers, or high blood pressure, ailments linked to high-stress living. Carnegie argues that no amount of business success is worth such a toll on one's health. Carnegie also discusses the mental toll of worry. He notes that worry can lead to nervous breakdowns and even insanity. He shares that 1 out of every 6 men called up for the draft during World War II was rejected for mental health issues, many of which were likely exacerbated by worry and stress. He mentions Dr. Edward Podolsky's book Stop Worrying and Get Well, which details the physical damage that worry can cause, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, and even tooth decay. The chapter includes historical examples to illustrate how worry can affect even the strongest individuals. General Ulysses S. Grant, during the final days of the Civil War, suffered from a severe headache caused by the stress of pursuing General Lee's army. However, the moment he received Lee's letter of surrender, his headache vanished, illustrating how quickly physical symptoms can disappear when the underlying worry is resolved. Similarly, Carnegie shares a story about Henry Morgenthau, Jr., Secretary of the Treasury under Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was so worried about the financial decisions he had to make during the Great Depression that he became dizzy and had to rest in bed. Morgenthau's experience highlights how worry can manifest as physical symptoms, even in highly capable individuals. Carnegie also touches on how worry can lead to more serious conditions like arthritis and thyroid problems. He references Dr. Russell L. Cecil, a world-renowned authority on arthritis, who identified emotional stress as a key factor in the development of the disease. Carnegie also discusses how worry can cause skin conditions and hair loss, further emphasizing the wide-reaching physical impacts of chronic anxiety. The chapter concludes by advising readers to take worry seriously and to recognize its potential to cause both mental and physical harm. Carnegie suggests that by understanding the dangers of worry, readers will be more motivated to adopt the techniques outlined in the book to reduce their anxiety and improve their overall well-being. Chapter 4: How to Analyze and Solve Worry Problems. In Chapter 4, Carnegie introduces a systematic approach to analyzing and solving worry problems, emphasizing the importance of clarity and methodical thinking. He argues that much of our worry stems from vague, undefined problems that seem overwhelming because we haven't taken the time to break them down into manageable parts. Carnegie provides practical advice on how to dissect and address these issues effectively. The chapter begins with a personal anecdote from Carnegie's own life. He recounts how he once faced a challenging situation that left him paralyzed with worry. The problem seemed insurmountable until he applied a simple, 3-step method: analyzing the problem, gathering the facts, and making a decision. This approach allowed him to see the situation more clearly and to take action, which ultimately resolved the issue. Carnegie emphasizes that the first step in dealing with any worry is to get the facts. He argues that half the anxiety we experience comes from trying to make decisions without having all the necessary information. To illustrate this point, he shares the story of a businessman who was struggling with a complex issue that was causing him a great deal of stress. The businessman decided to sit down and write out all the facts related to the problem. By doing so, he was able to see the situation more clearly and to identify a solution that had previously eluded him. Once the facts are gathered, the next step is to analyze the facts. Carnegie advises readers to approach this step with a calm, rational mindset, avoiding the temptation to jump to conclusions or let emotions cloud their judgment. He suggests that one effective way to analyze the facts is to ask oneself, what are the possible solutions? And then to weigh the pros and cons of each option. The final step is to make a decision and act on it. Carnegie stresses that indecision is one of the primary causes of worry. Once a decision is made, even if it's not perfect, it provides a sense of direction and purpose that can alleviate much of the anxiety associated with uncertainty. He notes that most of the time, any decision is better than no decision, as it allows us to move forward and adjust our course as needed. Carnegie also introduces the concept of thinking in terms of probabilities. He explains that many of our worries are based on unlikely scenarios, and that by assessing the probability of these scenarios actually occurring, we can often see that our fears are exaggerated. He advises readers to ask themselves, what is the worst that could happen? And then to determine the likelihood of that outcome. In many cases, this exercise reveals that the worst-case scenario is either highly unlikely or not as catastrophic as initially feared. The chapter includes examples of how this analytical approach can be applied in real life. Carnegie shares the story of a successful businessman who was worried about a potential lawsuit. By applying the three-step method, the businessman was able to see that the lawsuit was unlikely to succeed and that even if it did, the financial impact would be manageable. This realization allowed him to stop worrying and focus on running his business. Carnegie also discusses the importance of taking action once a decision has been made. He argues that action is the antidote to worry, as it shifts our focus from anxiety to problem solving. Even small steps can make a big difference, as they create momentum and a sense of progress. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt this systematic approach to solving worry problems. By gathering the facts, analyzing them carefully, and making a decision, we can take control of our worries and turn them into manageable challenges. This chapter provides a practical framework that can be applied to a wide range of personal and professional situations, helping readers to reduce their anxiety and improve their decision-making skills. Chapter 5: How to Eliminate 50% of Your Business Worries. Chapter 5 offers a powerful strategy for reducing business-related worries by focusing on effective communication and delegation. He argues that many of the problems that cause anxiety in the workplace stem from misunderstandings, lack of information, and poor decision-making processes. By improving these areas, Carnegie believes that business professionals can eliminate up to 50% of their worries. The chapter begins with a story about Leon Shimkin, a manager at the publishing firm Simon & Schuster. Shimkin was overwhelmed by the constant pressure of running a successful business, dealing with deadlines, and managing a team. He found himself constantly worrying about the company's performance, which took a toll on his health and well-being. In an effort to reduce his stress, Shimkin decided to experiment with a new approach. He would involve his team more actively in the decision-making process. Shimkin started by organizing regular meetings where he would present the problems the company was facing and ask his team for their input. He discovered that when his team was given the opportunity to contribute to solving the problems, they not only came up with creative solutions but also felt more invested in the outcomes. This, in turn, reduced Shimkin's workload and stress, as he no longer felt solely responsible for every decision. By sharing the responsibility, he was able to eliminate a significant portion of his worries. Carnegie uses this story to highlight the importance of effective communication in the workplace. He argues that many business worries arise because leaders try to shoulder all the responsibility themselves, rather than trusting their teams and delegating tasks. By involving others in the decision-making process and encouraging open communication, business leaders can reduce their own stress and create a more collaborative work environment. Carnegie also discusses the importance of clarity in communication. He points out that misunderstandings and lack of clear instructions are common sources of worry in business. When employees are unsure of what is expected of them, they are more likely to make mistakes, which can lead to problems that cause stress for everyone involved. To prevent this, Carnegie advises leaders to be clear and specific in their instructions, to ensure that everyone understands their roles and responsibilities. Another key point in the chapter is the concept of prioritization. Carnegie emphasizes that not all problems are equally important, and that business leaders should focus their attention on the issues that matter most. He suggests using a simple method to prioritize tasks, categorize them based on their urgency and importance. By tackling the most critical issues first, leaders can prevent small problems from escalating into larger ones and reduce the overall level of worry in their organization. Carnegie also addresses the issue of decision-making. He argues that many business worries stem from the fear of making the wrong decision. To counter this, he suggests a method known as the quantitative approach, which involves gathering all the relevant facts, analyzing them, and then making a decision based on the best available information. By following this method, business leaders can make more informed decisions and reduce the anxiety associated with uncertainty. The chapter includes practical advice for implementing these strategies in the workplace. Carnegie recommends setting aside time each day to focus on problem-solving and decision-making, rather than allowing these tasks to pile up and become overwhelming. He also suggests keeping a worry log, where leaders can write down their concerns and then systematically address each one, either by taking action or by delegating the task to someone else. In conclusion, Carnegie argues that by improving communication, delegation, and decision-making processes, business leaders can eliminate a significant portion of their worries. This chapter provides valuable insights into how to create a more efficient and less stressful work environment, which can lead to greater productivity and overall well-being. Chapter 6: How to Crowd Worry Out of Your Mind. In Chapter 6, Carnegie introduces the idea of replacing worry with more constructive thoughts and actions, a process he calls crowding worry out of your mind. This chapter emphasizes the importance of actively engaging in meaningful activities and thoughts to prevent worry from taking root. Carnegie begins by discussing how our minds cannot focus on more than one thing at a time. If we fill our minds with positive, engaging thoughts or tasks, there is no room left for worry. This principle is rooted in the idea that worry is often a result of idle time and an unoccupied mind. Carnegie argues that one of the most effective ways to combat worry is to stay busy with productive activities. He shares the story of Henry Ford, who maintained that keeping busy with meaningful work was the best way to prevent worry. Ford believed that an idle mind was a breeding ground for anxiety and stress, and he credited his success to staying focused on his work and goals. Carnegie echoes this sentiment, suggesting that by immersing ourselves in tasks that require our full attention, we can push worry out of our minds. Carnegie then offers practical advice on how to crowd worry out of your mind. He suggests finding a hobby or activity that you are passionate about and dedicating time to it regularly. Whether it's gardening, painting, or volunteering, engaging in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment can help keep your mind occupied and free from worry. Another method Carnegie recommends is to set specific goals and work toward them. By focusing on achieving something tangible, you can direct your energy toward positive outcomes rather than dwelling on negative thoughts. He emphasizes the importance of breaking down larger goals into smaller, manageable tasks, which not only makes the goals seem less daunting but also provides a sense of accomplishment as you complete each step. The chapter also touches on the concept of constructive worry, where instead of passively dwelling on problems, you actively work to find solutions. Carnegie argues that worry can be transformed into a positive force if it motivates you to take action and address the issues at hand. However, the key is to limit the time spent on worrying and to transition quickly into problem-solving mode. Carnegie shares an anecdote about a woman who was consumed by worry after her husband passed away. She found herself constantly anxious about her future and her ability to support her children. However, she decided to take up teaching as a way to occupy her mind and provide for her family. The demands of her new job left her little time to worry, and she found that her anxiety diminished as she became more absorbed in her work. This story illustrates how keeping busy with meaningful tasks can help reduce worry. Carnegie also discusses the importance of mental discipline. He suggests that we must train our minds to focus on positive, productive thoughts and to dismiss negative, worrying thoughts as soon as they arise. This mental discipline is similar to physical discipline in that it requires practice and consistency. Over time, by consistently choosing to focus on constructive activities and thoughts, we can develop a habit of thinking that naturally crowds out worry. The chapter concludes with a reminder that worrying about things we cannot control is a waste of time and energy. Instead, Carnegie encourages readers to focus on what they can control, their thoughts, actions, and responses to challenges. By doing so, they can lead a more peaceful and productive life, free from the paralyzing effects of worry. Chapter 7: Don't Let the Beetles Get You Down. In Chapter 7, Carnegie uses the metaphor of beetles to describe the small, often insignificant worries that can accumulate and overwhelm us if we let them. The chapter focuses on how to prevent these minor irritations from taking over our lives and affecting our mental well-being. Carnegie begins by recounting a story about a farmer whose barn was infested with beetles. The farmer became so obsessed with the beetles that he could think of nothing else. He worried constantly about the damage they were causing, to the point where it affected his health and happiness. Eventually, the farmer realized that while the beetles were a nuisance, they were not worth sacrificing his peace of mind. He decided to take control of the situation by addressing the beetle problem directly, rather than letting it dominate his thoughts. This story serves as a metaphor for the minor annoyances and worries that we all encounter in life. Carnegie argues that while these beetles may be irritating, they are not worth the emotional energy we often invest in them. He suggests that instead of allowing these small worries to pile up and overwhelm us, we should address them promptly and move on. Carnegie offers several strategies for dealing with these minor worries. First, he advises readers to put things into perspective. Many of the things we worry about are relatively insignificant in the grand scheme of things. By taking a step back and evaluating the true importance of these worries, we can often see that they are not worth our time and energy. He also suggests that we learn to accept the inevitability of minor irritations in life. Just as the farmer had to accept that there would always be some beetles in his barn, we must accept that life will never be completely free of annoyances. By adopting an attitude of acceptance, we can reduce the impact of these minor worries on our overall well-being. Another strategy Carnegie recommends is to address minor worries immediately, rather than letting them fester. Just as the farmer took action to deal with the beetles, we should take proactive steps to resolve small problems as they arise. Whether it's dealing with a minor conflict at work or fixing a leaky faucet, taking action can prevent these small issues from growing into larger sources of stress. Carnegie also touches on the importance of humor in dealing with minor worries. He suggests that by learning to laugh at the small irritations in life, we can reduce their power over us. Humor can provide a sense of perspective and help us see that many of the things we worry about are not as serious as they seem. The chapter includes examples of how people have successfully applied these strategies in their own lives. Carnegie shares the story of a businessman who was constantly worried about small details in his work. By learning to delegate tasks and focus on the bigger picture, the businessman was able to reduce his stress and improve his productivity. Another example involves a woman who learned to let go of her perfectionist tendencies, which had been causing her to worry excessively about minor issues. By accepting that not everything had to be perfect, she was able to enjoy life more and reduce her anxiety. Carnegie concludes the chapter by reminding readers that life is too short to be consumed by minor worries. He encourages them to focus on what truly matters and to let go of the small things that don't deserve their attention. By doing so, they can free themselves from unnecessary stress and live a happier, more fulfilling life. Chapter 8: A Law That Will Outlaw Many of Your Worries. In Chapter 8, Dale Carnegie introduces the concept of the law of averages as a tool for reducing worry. He argues that many of our fears and anxieties are based on highly unlikely events, and by understanding the true probabilities of these events occurring, we can often eliminate a significant portion of our worries. Carnegie begins by explaining that the law of averages is a mathematical principle that can help us assess the likelihood of various outcomes. For example, if you flip a coin 1,000 times, the law of averages predicts that it will land on heads approximately 500 times and on tails approximately 500 times. Similarly, many of the things we worry about are far less likely to happen than we might think. To illustrate this point, Carnegie shares the story of a businessman who was plagued by worry about the possibility of his company going bankrupt. The businessman's fear was so intense that it affected his health and ability to focus on his work. However, when he analyzed the situation using the law of averages, he realized that the probability of his company going bankrupt was actually very low. This realization allowed him to let go of his fear and focus on running his business effectively. Carnegie encourages readers to apply the law of averages to their own worries. He suggests that they start by identifying their fears and then objectively assessing the likelihood of those fears becoming reality. In many cases, they will find that the chances of their worst fears coming true are much lower than they imagined. Carnegie also discusses how the law of averages can be applied to specific fears, such as the fear of flying. He points out that while many people are afraid of flying, the chances of being involved in a plane crash are actually very small. By understanding this, individuals can reduce their anxiety and enjoy their travels more. The chapter also touches on the concept of constructive worry, where instead of passively worrying about unlikely events, individuals take proactive steps to address the risks. For example, if someone is worried about losing their job, they can reduce this worry by improving their skills, networking, and saving money. By taking these actions, they increase their sense of control and reduce their anxiety. Carnegie emphasizes that while it's natural to have fears, it's important not to let them dominate our lives. By applying the law of averages and focusing on the most likely outcomes, we can reduce unnecessary worry and focus on more productive activities. The chapter concludes with a reminder that life is full of uncertainties, but by understanding the true probabilities of different outcomes, we can make more informed decisions and live with greater peace of mind. Carnegie encourages readers to use the law of averages as a tool to challenge their fears and reduce the impact of worry on their lives. Chapter 9. Cooperate with the inevitable. In Chapter 9, Carnegie introduces the idea of cooperating with the inevitable, which means accepting the things we cannot change and learning to live with them peacefully. This chapter emphasizes the importance of adaptability and resilience in dealing with life's challenges. Carnegie begins by explaining that many of our worries and frustrations stem from our resistance to the inevitable. We often waste time and energy fighting against circumstances that are beyond our control, which only leads to more stress and anxiety. By learning to accept what we cannot change, we can free ourselves from this unnecessary burden and focus on what we can control. He shares the story of a businessman who lost a large sum of money in a failed investment. The businessman was devastated by the loss and spent weeks agonizing over it. However, he eventually realized that no amount of worry could change the past. Instead of dwelling on his mistake, he decided to focus on rebuilding his financial situation. This shift in mindset allowed him to recover from the loss more quickly and to move forward with his life. Carnegie emphasizes that acceptance does not mean resignation or giving up. Rather, it means recognizing the reality of a situation and adapting to it in a constructive way. He argues that this approach is not only more effective but also more empowering, as it allows us to take control of our response to challenges rather than being controlled by them. The chapter includes practical advice on how to apply this principle in everyday life. Carnegie suggests that when faced with a difficult situation, we should ask ourselves, "What's the worst that can happen?" and then prepare to accept that outcome if necessary. By mentally preparing for the worst, we can reduce the fear and anxiety associated with uncertainty. Carnegie also discusses the importance of flexibility in dealing with challenges. He uses the metaphor of a tree in a storm. A rigid tree is more likely to break in strong winds, while a flexible tree bends with the wind and survives. Similarly, by being flexible and adaptable, we can weather life's storms more effectively. The chapter also touches on the concept of Stoicism, which teaches that we should focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. Carnegie shares the story of Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, who faced immense challenges during World War II. Despite the overwhelming odds, Nimitz remained calm and focused, accepting the realities of the situation and working within those constraints to achieve victory. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt a similar mindset in their own lives. He suggests that by accepting the things we cannot change and focusing on what we can control, we can reduce stress and increase our resilience. This approach not only helps us cope with difficult situations but also allows us to live more peacefully and productively. The chapter concludes with a reminder that life is full of uncertainties and challenges, but by cooperating with the inevitable, we can find peace and strength in even the most difficult circumstances. Carnegie encourages readers to embrace this principle as a way to reduce worry and enhance their overall well-being. Chapter 10. Put a stop-loss order on your worries. Chapter 10 introduces the concept of putting a stop-loss order on your worries, a technique borrowed from the world of finance. This chapter focuses on setting limits on how much time and energy we spend worrying about problems, and knowing when to cut our losses and move on. Carnegie begins by explaining the origin of the stop-loss order in stock trading. A stop-loss order is an instruction to sell a stock when its price drops to a certain level, thereby limiting the investor's potential losses. Similarly, Carnegie argues that we should apply a stop-loss order to our worries, setting a limit on how much time we allow ourselves to spend on them before taking action or letting them go. He shares the story of a businessman who was consumed by worry over a failing venture. The businessman spent countless hours agonizing over whether to continue investing in the business or to cut his losses and move on. After months of indecision, he finally decided to set a time limit on his worry. He gave himself a week to make a final decision and then resolved to stick to it, regardless of the outcome. By setting this limit, he was able to free himself from the constant stress and make a clear-headed decision to close the business and pursue other opportunities. Carnegie emphasizes that this approach can be applied to many areas of life, not just business. Whether it's a personal relationship, a project, or a financial decision, setting a stop-loss order on our worries allows us to take control of the situation and prevent it from dominating our thoughts. He offers practical advice on how to implement this technique. First, he suggests identifying the specific problem or worry that is causing stress. Next, set a clear time limit for how long you will allow yourself to focus on it. During this time, gather all the necessary information, consider your options, and make a decision. Once the time limit is up, take action based on your decision and move on, without looking back. Carnegie also discusses the importance of not letting pride or fear of failure prevent us from cutting our losses. He notes that many people continue to invest time, money, or emotional energy into a situation simply because they are reluctant to admit that it's not working. However, by holding on too long, we often end up losing more in the long run. Carnegie argues that it's better to accept a small loss and move on than to risk a much larger loss by clinging to a failing situation. The chapter includes examples of how this principle has been successfully applied in various situations. Carnegie shares the story of a woman who was in an unhappy marriage. For years, she worried about whether to stay in the marriage or leave, but she was unable to make a decision. Finally, she set a stop-loss order on her worry, giving herself a set period of time to decide. At the end of that period, she chose to leave the marriage and start a new life. This decision, though difficult, brought her peace and allowed her to move forward. Carnegie also touches on the psychological benefits of setting limits on worry. He explains that by giving ourselves a deadline for making a decision, we reduce the mental burden of endless rumination. This not only helps us make better decisions but also improves our overall mental health by reducing the amount of time we spend in a state of anxiety. The chapter concludes with a reminder that while worry is a natural part of life, it doesn't have to control us. By setting a stop-loss order on our worries, we can take charge of our thoughts and make decisions that lead to a more peaceful and productive life. Carnegie encourages readers to apply this principle in their own lives as a way to reduce stress and increase their sense of control. Chapter 11. Don't try to saw sawdust. In Chapter 11, Carnegie introduces the concept of not trying to saw sawdust, a metaphor for not dwelling on the past or attempting to change things that cannot be changed. This chapter emphasizes the importance of letting go of past mistakes, regrets, and grievances in order to live a more peaceful and productive life. Carnegie begins by explaining that sawdust represents things that are already finished, such as past events and decisions. Just as it is impossible to saw sawdust, it is equally futile to try to change the past. He argues that many people waste valuable time and energy by obsessing over past mistakes or missed opportunities, which only serves to increase their anxiety and prevent them from moving forward. He shares the story of a man who was consumed by regret over a failed business venture. The man spent years agonizing over the decisions he had made, constantly replaying the events in his mind and wishing he could go back and do things differently. This obsession with the past affected his health, strained his relationships, and prevented him from pursuing new opportunities. It wasn't until he realized that he was trying to saw sawdust that he was able to let go of his regrets and focus on rebuilding his life. Carnegie emphasizes that letting go of the past is not about denying or ignoring what has happened, but rather about accepting it and moving on. He argues that we must learn to forgive ourselves for our mistakes and recognize that we cannot change what has already occurred. By doing so, we free ourselves from the emotional burden of regret and open ourselves up to new possibilities. The chapter offers practical advice on how to let go of the past. Carnegie suggests that when you find yourself dwelling on a past event, ask yourself if there is anything you can do to change it. If the answer is no, then it's time to stop thinking about it and focus on the present. He also recommends adopting a forward-looking mindset, where you set new goals and concentrate on the future rather than the past. Carnegie also discusses the importance of forgiving others as part of letting go of the past. He argues that holding on to grudges and grievances only serves to prolong the pain and prevent healing. By forgiving those who have wronged us, we release ourselves from the negative emotions associated with the past and create space for positive growth. The chapter includes examples of people who have successfully let go of the past and transformed their lives as a result. Carnegie shares the story of a woman who was deeply hurt by a betrayal from a close friend. For years, she held on to her anger and resentment, which affected her ability to trust others and enjoy life. Eventually, she realized that by holding on to her bitterness, she was only hurting herself. She decided to forgive her friend and move on, which allowed her to heal and rebuild her life. Carnegie also touches on the idea that worrying about the past is a form of self-sabotage. By constantly replaying past events in our minds, we prevent ourselves from fully engaging with the present and achieving our potential. He encourages readers to recognize when they are trying to saw sawdust, and to consciously shift their focus to the present and future. The chapter concludes with a reminder that the past is unchangeable, but the future is still within our control. Carnegie encourages readers to stop wasting time on regrets and to start focusing on what they can do today to create a better tomorrow. By letting go of the past, we can free ourselves from the chains of worry and live a more fulfilling and peaceful life. Chapter 12: 8 Words That Can Transform Your Life. In Chapter 12, the author introduces a simple but powerful phrase that can help transform how we handle worry. This too shall pass. This chapter emphasizes the importance of perspective and the understanding that all things, both good and bad, are temporary. Carnegie begins by recounting the story of King Solomon, who sought a way to humble his wisest advisor. Solomon asked the advisor to find a magic ring that would make a sad person happy and a happy person sad. The advisor returned with a simple gold ring engraved with the words, "This too shall pass." Solomon realized the profound truth in these words, that everything in life is fleeting, and nothing is permanent. Carnegie argues that this simple phrase can have a transformative effect on how we deal with worry and stress. By reminding ourselves that whatever difficulties we are facing will eventually pass, we can prevent ourselves from becoming overwhelmed by temporary challenges. This perspective allows us to maintain our emotional balance, even in the face of adversity. The chapter includes several examples of how adopting this mindset can help people cope with difficult situations. Carnegie shares the story of a woman who was devastated by the loss of her husband. She found herself overwhelmed with grief and unable to see any hope for the future. However, by reminding herself that, "This too shall pass," she was able to gradually come to terms with her loss and start rebuilding her life. Carnegie also discusses how the same phrase can apply to positive experiences. He points out that many people make the mistake of clinging too tightly to moments of happiness, fearing their eventual end. By recognizing that good times are also temporary, we can appreciate them more fully without the anxiety of trying to hold on to them. The chapter offers practical advice on how to incorporate this phrase into your daily life. Carnegie suggests that whenever you find yourself worrying about a situation, repeat the words, "This too shall pass," to yourself. This simple act can help shift your focus from the immediate problem to the bigger picture, reminding you that your current troubles are just a small part of the larger journey of life. Carnegie also encourages readers to share this wisdom with others who may be struggling. He argues that by helping others see the temporary nature of their difficulties, we can provide them with comfort and support, just as King Solomon's advisor did for the king. The chapter concludes with a reminder that life is full of ups and downs, but by maintaining perspective and remembering that this too shall pass, we can navigate these changes with greater ease and resilience. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt this phrase as a mantra for dealing with worry and stress, as it can provide a sense of peace and stability in even the most challenging times. Chapter 13: The High Cost of Getting Even. In Chapter 13, Carnegie explores the destructive nature of revenge and the high emotional cost of trying to get even with those who have wronged us. This chapter emphasizes the importance of forgiveness and the benefits of letting go of grudges. Carnegie begins by discussing the natural human tendency to seek revenge when we feel wronged or hurt. While this impulse is understandable, Carnegie argues that it often leads to more harm than good. By focusing on getting even, we allow the actions of others to control our emotions and dictate our behavior, which can ultimately lead to more pain and suffering. He shares the story of a businessman who was deeply wronged by a former partner. The businessman became obsessed with seeking revenge, dedicating all his time and resources to ruining his former partner's life. However, in the process, the businessman neglected his own health, relationships, and business. By the time he succeeded in his quest for revenge, he had lost much more than his former partner had taken from him. This story illustrates the high cost of getting even and the damage it can do to our own lives. Carnegie argues that the desire for revenge often stems from a sense of wounded pride. When we are wrong, we feel a need to restore our self-esteem by making the other person suffer. However, this approach rarely brings the satisfaction we seek. Instead, it prolongs our anger and keeps us trapped in a cycle of negativity. The chapter offers practical advice on how to overcome the urge to seek revenge and instead embrace forgiveness. Carnegie suggests that when we are wrong, we should ask ourselves whether getting even will truly make us happy or if it will only lead to more bitterness and resentment. By choosing to forgive, we can free ourselves from the emotional burden of carrying a grudge and focus on more positive and productive pursuits. Carnegie also discusses the concept of turning the other cheek, as taught by religious and spiritual leaders throughout history. While this approach may seem difficult, Carnegie argues that it is often the most effective way to disarm an opponent and defuse a conflict. By responding to wrongdoing with kindness and understanding, we can break the cycle of retaliation and create an opportunity for reconciliation. The chapter includes examples of people who have successfully let go of their desire for revenge and found peace as a result. Carnegie shares the story of a man who was betrayed by a close friend. Instead of seeking revenge, the man chose to forgive his friend and move on with his life. This decision allowed him to maintain his inner peace and focus on building positive relationships, rather than being consumed by anger and bitterness. Carnegie also touches on the idea that forgiveness is not about condoning the actions of others, but rather about freeing ourselves from the negative emotions that come with holding a grudge. He argues that forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves, as it allows us to move forward without being weighed down by the past. The chapter concludes with a reminder that the cost of getting even is often much higher than we realize. By choosing forgiveness over revenge, we can protect our own well-being and create a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Carnegie encourages readers to let go of their grudges and focus on the positive aspects of life, as this will lead to greater happiness and inner peace. Chapter 14. If you do this, you will never worry about ingratitude. Chapter 14 addresses the common worry of feeling unappreciated or unacknowledged by others, particularly in the context of good deeds and hard work. He offers strategies for overcoming this worry and finding fulfillment regardless of the recognition we receive from others. Carnegie begins by discussing the universal human desire for appreciation and gratitude. We all want to feel that our efforts are recognized and valued, whether it's in our personal relationships, at work, or in our communities. However, Carnegie points out that expecting gratitude can often lead to disappointment, as people may not always express their appreciation in the ways we hope for. He shares the story of a woman who devoted years of her life to caring for an elderly relative, only to receive little thanks in return. The lack of gratitude made her feel bitter and resentful, and she began to worry that her efforts had been in vain. This story highlights how the expectation of gratitude can turn a generous act into a source of frustration and anxiety. Carnegie argues that one of the most effective ways to overcome this worry is to change our mindset about why we do good deeds. Instead of seeking external validation or recognition, we should focus on the intrinsic value of our actions and the satisfaction that comes from knowing we have done the right thing. By shifting our focus from what we hope to receive in return to the positive impact we can have on others, we can free ourselves from the disappointment of unmet expectations. The chapter offers practical advice on how to cultivate this mindset. Carnegie suggests that we practice what he calls unselfish giving, where we give of our time, resources, and energy without expecting anything in return. This approach not only reduces the likelihood of feeling unappreciated but also allows us to experience the joy of giving for its own sake. Carnegie also discusses the importance of not taking ingratitude personally. He explains that many people fail to express gratitude not out of malice or indifference, but simply because they are preoccupied with their own lives and concerns. By recognizing that ingratitude is often a reflection of the other person's state of mind, rather than a judgment of our worth, we can reduce the emotional impact it has on us. The chapter includes examples of historical figures who practiced unselfish giving and found fulfillment despite a lack of recognition. Carnegie shares the story of Florence Nightingale, who revolutionized nursing and saved countless lives during the Crimean War. Despite her immense contributions, Nightingale received little acknowledgement from the government or public at the time. However, she continued her work with dedication and passion, driven by a deep sense of purpose rather than the desire for recognition. Carnegie also touches on the idea that gratitude is often expressed in subtle ways that may not be immediately obvious. He encourages readers to look for these small signs of appreciation and to recognize that even if people don't always say, "Thank you," their actions may still reflect their gratitude. The chapter concludes with a reminder that while it's natural to desire recognition and appreciation, we should not let the lack of it diminish the value of our good deeds. By focusing on the intrinsic rewards of helping others and letting go of the need for external validation, we can live a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Carnegie encourages readers to continue doing good, regardless of whether their efforts are acknowledged, as this will lead to true inner satisfaction and reduce worry about ingratitude. Chapter 15. Would you take $1 million for what you have? In Chapter 15, Carnegie encourages readers to shift their focus from what they lack to what they already have. He challenges us to consider the immense value of our health, loved ones, and everyday blessings, things that we often take for granted but that are worth more than any amount of money. Carnegie begins by posing a provocative question. Would you take $1 million for what you have? He asks readers to imagine being offered $1 million in exchange for their eyesight, hearing, or the ability to walk. Most people would instinctively reject such an offer, realizing that these fundamental aspects of life are priceless. The chapter emphasizes the importance of gratitude and perspective in reducing worry. Carnegie argues that much of our anxiety stems from focusing on what we don't have, whether it's money, status, or material possessions, rather than appreciating the wealth we already possess in the form of our health, relationships, and experiences. By shifting our focus to the abundance in our lives, we can reduce feelings of lack and inadequacy. Carnegie shares several stories of people who have gained a new appreciation for life after facing serious challenges. One story involves a man who lost his sight in an accident but later regained it after a successful operation. The experience made him realize how much he had taken his vision for granted, and he vowed never to forget the value of his sight again. This story illustrates how close encounters with loss can remind us of the blessings we often overlook. The chapter also includes the story of a woman who was diagnosed with a serious illness and given only a short time to live. Faced with the prospect of death, she began to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, such as spending time with loved ones and enjoying nature. This newfound perspective helped her to live her remaining days with joy and gratitude, rather than fear and regret. Carnegie suggests that we can cultivate this mindset of gratitude by regularly taking stock of the things we are thankful for. He recommends making a habit of reflecting on our blessings each day, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply pausing to appreciate the good things in our lives. This practice can help us maintain a positive outlook and reduce the tendency to focus on what we lack. The chapter also touches on the idea that true wealth is not measured by material possessions but by the richness of our experiences and relationships. Carnegie argues that while money and material goods can provide comfort and convenience, they cannot buy the things that truly matter in life, such as love, friendship, and health. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt a mindset of abundance, where they focus on the positive aspects of their lives rather than dwelling on what they don't have. He argues that this shift in perspective can help reduce worry and increase overall happiness. The chapter concludes with a reminder that we are already richer than we often realize. By valuing what we have and practicing gratitude, we can reduce our worries and live a more fulfilling life. Carnegie challenges readers to regularly ask themselves, "Would I take $1 million for what I have?" as a way to keep their focus on the abundance in their lives and to appreciate the true wealth they possess. Chapter 16. Find yourself and be yourself. Remember there is no one else on earth like you. Chapter 16 emphasizes the importance of self-acceptance and authenticity as key components of reducing worry and living a fulfilling life. This chapter encourages readers to embrace their unique qualities and to stop comparing themselves to others. Carnegie begins by discussing the dangers of trying to conform to societal expectations or to be someone we're not. He argues that many people waste their lives trying to live up to the standards of others, whether it's in terms of career, appearance, or behavior. This constant comparison leads to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and self-doubt, which can prevent us from living authentically and fully. He shares the story of a young woman who spent years trying to mold herself into the image of what she thought others wanted her to be. She was constantly worried about her appearance, her social status, and how she was perceived by others. This worry consumed her, making her miserable and preventing her from enjoying life. It wasn't until she decided to embrace her true self, flaws and all, that she was able to find happiness and inner peace. Carnegie argues that the key to reducing worry is to accept ourselves as we are, rather than trying to be someone else. He emphasizes that each person is unique, with their own strengths, weaknesses, and qualities that make them who they are. By recognizing and valuing our individuality, we can stop comparing ourselves to others and start living authentically. The chapter includes practical advice on how to cultivate self-acceptance. Carnegie suggests that we start by identifying our strengths and focusing on what makes us unique. Instead of dwelling on our perceived flaws or shortcomings, we should celebrate our talents and qualities that set us apart from others. This shift in focus can help build confidence and reduce the worry that comes from trying to live up to unrealistic expectations. Carnegie also discusses the importance of living according to our own values and principles, rather than those imposed by others. He encourages readers to define what success and happiness mean to them personally and to pursue goals that align with their true selves. By doing so, we can find fulfillment and satisfaction that is not dependent on the approval of others. The chapter includes the story of a successful businessman who struggled with feelings of inadequacy because he wasn't as wealthy or powerful as some of his peers. He constantly compared himself to others and felt that he was falling short. However, when he took the time to reflect on his own values and priorities, he realized that he was already living a life that was meaningful and fulfilling to him. This realization allowed him to let go of his comparisons and to focus on what truly mattered to him. Carnegie also touches on the idea that trying to be someone we're not can lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. When we constantly strive to meet the expectations of others, we risk losing touch with our true selves and becoming disconnected from our own needs and desires. This can lead to a sense of emptiness and unfulfillment, even if we achieve external success. The chapter concludes with a reminder that there is no one else on earth exactly like you, and that this uniqueness is something to be celebrated. Carnegie encourages readers to embrace their individuality and to live authentically, as this is the key to reducing worry and finding true happiness. By being ourselves and accepting who we are, we can live a life that is true to our values and free from the pressures of comparison and conformity. Chapter 17. If you have a lemon, make a lemonade. In Chapter 17, Carnegie shares the timeless advice of turning adversity into advantage, summarized by the popular saying, "If you have a lemon, make a lemonade." This chapter is all about the power of resilience and optimism in the face of challenges, teaching readers how to transform seemingly negative situations into opportunities for growth and success. Carnegie begins by discussing the inevitability of encountering difficulties and setbacks in life. Everyone, at some point, will face challenges that seem unfair or overwhelming. However, the key to overcoming these obstacles lies in how we respond to them. Instead of allowing difficulties to defeat us, we can choose to use them as catalysts for personal and professional growth. Carnegie shares the story of Julius Rosenwald, a businessman who faced significant challenges in his career but managed to turn them into opportunities. Rosenwald, who later became president of Sears, Roebuck and Company, encountered a serious problem when a shipment of goods was delayed, leading to angry customers and potential financial loss. Instead of panicking, Rosenwald decided to make the best of the situation by offering customers an apology and a special discount on their next purchase. This approach not only appeased the customers but also turned a potential disaster into a marketing success, helping to build customer loyalty. The chapter emphasizes that setbacks and difficulties often contain the seeds of opportunity, if we are willing to look for them. Carnegie argues that by adopting a positive attitude and refusing to be defeated by adversity, we can find creative solutions to our problems and even turn them to our advantage. Carnegie also discusses the importance of maintaining a flexible mindset when facing challenges. He suggests that we should be open to changing our plans and adapting to new circumstances, rather than rigidly sticking to our original goals. This flexibility allows us to respond more effectively to unexpected difficulties and to find new paths to success. The chapter includes practical advice on how to cultivate this resilient mindset. Carnegie recommends that when faced with a problem, we should first take a step back and assess the situation objectively. Instead of reacting emotionally, we should ask ourselves how we can turn the situation around or what positive outcome might arise from it. By focusing on solutions rather than problems, we can maintain our optimism and motivation. Carnegie also shares the story of a man who lost his job during the Great Depression. Instead of succumbing to despair, the man decided to pursue a long-held dream of starting his own business. With no money and few resources, he began by selling homemade candy door to door. Despite the challenges, his business gradually grew, and he eventually became a successful entrepreneur. This story illustrates the power of turning a lemon job loss into lemonade, a new business and a fulfilling career. Carnegie also touches on the idea that adversity can be a source of personal growth. He argues that the difficulties we face often teach us important lessons about ourselves and the world around us. By embracing these challenges and learning from them, we can become stronger, wiser, and more resilient individuals. The chapter concludes with a reminder that while we cannot always control the challenges that come our way, we can control how we respond to them. By choosing to make lemonade out of life's lemons, we can transform setbacks into opportunities and create a more positive and fulfilling life. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt this mindset as a way to reduce worry and increase their ability to thrive in the face of adversity. Chapter 18: How to Cure Melancholy in 14 Days. Chapter 18 offers a practical, step-by-step approach to overcoming melancholy and depression by focusing on serving others. He presents a 14-day plan designed to shift the focus away from self-centered worries and toward helping those around us, which in turn brings a sense of purpose and joy. Carnegie begins by acknowledging that everyone experiences periods of melancholy or sadness, but he argues that the best way to combat these feelings is through active engagement in helping others. He notes that many people who are depressed become so absorbed in their own troubles that they lose sight of the world around them. By shifting our focus outward, we can break the cycle of negative thoughts and find fulfillment in making a positive difference in the lives of others. The chapter introduces the concept of getting out of yourself as the key to overcoming melancholy. Carnegie suggests that by engaging in acts of kindness and service, we can lift our spirits and find new meaning in life. He shares the story of a woman who was struggling with deep depression after the death of her husband. Instead of withdrawing further into her grief, she decided to volunteer at a local hospital, helping others who were suffering. This act of service not only provided her with a sense of purpose but also helped her heal from her own loss. Carnegie outlines a 14-day plan for curing melancholy, which involves dedicating each day to a specific act of kindness or service. The plan is designed to be simple and achievable, with tasks ranging from writing a letter of appreciation to someone who has made a difference in your life, to visiting a lonely neighbor or volunteering at a local charity. By focusing on these small, daily acts of kindness, we can gradually shift our focus away from our own troubles and experience the joy of giving. The chapter emphasizes that the key to the plan's success is consistency. Carnegie argues that by making a habit of serving others, we can create a lasting change in our outlook and mental health. He notes that while the plan may not completely eliminate melancholy, it can significantly reduce its intensity and frequency, providing a healthier, more positive way to cope with life's challenges. Carnegie also discusses the psychological benefits of helping others, citing research that shows how acts of kindness can boost our mood and increase feelings of happiness. He explains that when we help others, our brain releases endorphins, the body's natural feel-good chemicals, which can help combat feelings of sadness and depression. The chapter includes practical tips for implementing the 14-day plan. Carnegie suggests starting with small, manageable tasks and gradually building up to more significant acts of service. He also recommends keeping a journal to track your progress and reflect on the positive impact your actions are having on both yourself and others. Carnegie also touches on the idea that helping others can give us a new perspective on our own problems. When we see the struggles and challenges that others face, our own difficulties often seem less overwhelming. This shift in perspective can help us develop greater resilience and reduce the tendency to dwell on negative thoughts. The chapter concludes with a reminder that while melancholy is a natural part of life, we don't have to let it control us. By actively seeking out opportunities to help others and following the 14-day plan, we can lift our spirits and find new meaning and joy in life. Carnegie encourages readers to try the plan for themselves and experience the transformative power of kindness and service. Chapter 19: How My Mother and Father Conquered Worry. In Chapter 19, Carnegie shares a personal story about how his parents overcame significant hardships and worries by adopting a positive attitude and focusing on what they could control. This chapter highlights the importance of perseverance, faith, and the power of a supportive community in overcoming life's challenges. Carnegie begins by recounting the difficult circumstances his parents faced during their early years of marriage. They were poor farmers in Missouri, struggling to make a living from a small, rocky farm. Despite their best efforts, they often faced crop failures, financial difficulties, and the constant worry of how they would provide for their growing family. Carnegie's father, a man of strong character and deep faith, dealt with these worries by focusing on what he could do rather than what he couldn't. He worked tirelessly on the farm, always looking for ways to improve the soil and increase crop yields. When faced with setbacks, he didn't dwell on them. Instead, he saw them as opportunities to learn and improve. This positive attitude helped him persevere through tough times and find solutions to the challenges he faced. Carnegie's mother, who played an equally important role in the family's survival, adopted a similar approach. Despite the constant worry about finances and the well-being of her children, she remained optimistic and focused on providing a loving and supportive home. She believed in the power of prayer and community, and she regularly sought comfort and strength from her faith and her relationships with others. Carnegie highlights how his parents' strong partnership and shared values helped them overcome their worries. They supported each other through the tough times, always finding ways to stay hopeful and motivated. Their resilience was not just the result of hard work, but also of their ability to maintain a positive outlook and to draw strength from their faith and community. The chapter includes several examples of how Carnegie's parents found creative solutions to their problems by working together and relying on their resourcefulness. For instance, when a crop failure threatened their livelihood, they didn't give up. Instead, they planted a new type of crop that was better suited to their land and climate, which eventually led to better yields and more stable income. Carnegie also discusses the importance of community in overcoming worry. He shares how his parents were active members of their local church and how the support they received from their fellow parishioners helped them through difficult times. Whether it was through shared labor during harvest time or moral support during a crisis, the community played a vital role in helping them manage their worries. The chapter emphasizes that while worry is a natural response to life's challenges, it doesn't have to control us. By adopting a positive attitude, focusing on what we can do, and seeking support from our faith and community, we can overcome even the most difficult situations. Carnegie's parents serve as an example of how resilience, faith, and strong relationships can help us conquer our worries and lead a fulfilling life. Carnegie concludes the chapter by reflecting on the lessons he learned from his parents' experiences. He encourages readers to adopt the same principles of hard work, faith, and community support in their own lives. By doing so, they can overcome their worries and find the strength to face whatever challenges come their way. Chapter 20. Remember that no one ever kicks a dead dog. In Chapter 20, Carnegie discusses the concept of criticism and how to handle it without letting it undermine our confidence or happiness. The chapter's title, "Remember that no one ever kicks a dead dog," serves as a reminder that criticism often indicates that we are doing something noteworthy or successful, something that attracts attention and, inevitably, some degree of criticism. Carnegie begins by explaining that criticism is an inevitable part of life, especially for those who take risks or stand out from the crowd. Whether we are in a leadership position, pursuing a creative endeavor, or simply living our lives authentically, we are bound to encounter criticism from others. The key, according to Carnegie, is not to avoid criticism but to learn how to handle it constructively. The chapter includes the story of Theodore Roosevelt, who faced intense criticism throughout his political career. Despite the harsh attacks from his opponents, Roosevelt remained undeterred, using criticism as a measure of his impact. He understood that if he wasn't being criticized, it likely meant he wasn't doing anything significant. This mindset allowed Roosevelt to maintain his confidence and continue pursuing his goals, regardless of what others said about him. Carnegie argues that we should adopt a similar perspective when dealing with criticism. Instead of taking it personally or letting it diminish our self-esteem, we should see it as a sign that we are making a difference. He suggests that we can even use criticism as a form of feedback, helping us to refine our approach and improve our work. The chapter offers practical advice on how to handle criticism. Carnegie suggests that when we receive criticism, we should first consider the source. Is the person offering constructive feedback, or are they simply trying to bring us down? By assessing the motives behind the criticism, we can better determine whether it is worth taking seriously. Carnegie also recommends that we try to learn from constructive criticism rather than reacting defensively. He argues that while it can be uncomfortable to hear negative feedback, it can also provide valuable insights that can help us grow and improve. By viewing criticism as an opportunity for learning, we can transform it from a source of anxiety into a tool for personal development. The chapter includes the story of a famous musician who was devastated by a harsh review from a critic. Instead of letting the criticism derail his career, the musician decided to use it as motivation to improve his skills. He worked harder than ever before, and eventually, his performances began receiving rave reviews. This story illustrates how criticism, when handled constructively, can lead to growth and success. Carnegie also discusses the importance of not letting unfounded or malicious criticism affect us. He points out that some people criticize others out of envy, insecurity, or a desire to feel superior. In these cases, it's important to recognize that the criticism says more about the critic than about us. By maintaining our focus on our own goals and values, we can avoid being swayed by negative opinions that have no basis in reality. The chapter concludes with a reminder that no one ever kicks a dead dog, meaning that if we are being criticized, it's because we are alive, active, and making an impact. Carnegie encourages readers to embrace this fact and to see criticism as a natural part of striving for success. By handling criticism with grace and using it as a tool for growth, we can maintain our confidence and continue moving forward on our chosen path. Chapter 21. Do this, and criticism can't hurt you. In Chapter 21, Carnegie builds on the previous discussion of criticism by offering a powerful strategy for neutralizing its impact. Do your best and then let go. This chapter teaches readers how to protect themselves from the emotional harm that criticism can cause by focusing on their own efforts and letting go of the need for approval from others. Carnegie begins by acknowledging that criticism can be painful, especially when it feels unjustified or personal. However, he argues that the best way to protect ourselves from the sting of criticism is to ensure that we have done our very best in whatever we are undertaking. Once we are confident that we have given our all, we can let go of the outcome and not worry about what others may say. The chapter includes the story of a woman who was constantly criticized by her mother-in-law, no matter what she did. The woman was deeply affected by these criticisms, which made her feel inadequate and unhappy. However, after reading one of Carnegie's earlier books, she decided to adopt a new approach. She would do her best in everything she did, but once she had done her best, she would let go of any concern about her mother-in-law's opinions. This change in mindset allowed her to regain her confidence and peace of mind, despite the ongoing criticism. Carnegie emphasizes that while we cannot control the opinions of others, we can control our own actions and attitudes. By focusing on doing our best and letting go of the need for approval, we free ourselves from the anxiety that comes from worrying about criticism. This approach not only protects our emotional well-being but also allows us to perform better, as we are not distracted by fear of judgment. The chapter offers practical advice on how to implement this strategy in daily life. Carnegie suggests that before undertaking any task, we should set clear standards for what doing our best looks like. Once we have completed the task to the best of our ability, we should consciously let go of any concerns about how others might judge it. This act of letting go is crucial, as it prevents us from becoming consumed by worry about criticism. Carnegie also discusses the importance of self-compassion in dealing with criticism. He argues that we should be kind to ourselves and recognize that no one is perfect. By accepting our own imperfections and doing our best regardless, we can build resilience against criticism and maintain a positive self-image. The chapter includes the story of a successful businessman who faced intense criticism from his competitors. Instead of letting the criticism affect him, the businessman focused on doing his best in his work and ignored the negative comments. His commitment to excellence paid off, as his business continued to thrive despite the criticism. This story illustrates how focusing on our own efforts and letting go of the need for approval can lead to success and fulfillment. Carnegie also touches on the idea that trying to please everyone is an impossible task. He notes that no matter how hard we try, there will always be someone who disapproves of our actions. By accepting this reality and focusing on doing our best, we can free ourselves from the stress of trying to win everyone's approval. The chapter concludes with a reminder that the only opinion that truly matters is our own. By doing our best and letting go of the need for approval from others, we can protect ourselves from the emotional harm of criticism and live a more peaceful and confident life. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt this approach as a way to reduce worry and increase their sense of self-worth. Chapter 22, Fool Things I Have Done. In Chapter 22, the author takes a more personal approach by reflecting on his own life and the fool things he has done that caused unnecessary worry and stress. This chapter is about learning from our mistakes and using them as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. Carnegie begins by sharing several anecdotes from his own life, where he made decisions that he later realized were unwise or foolish. These mistakes, he admits, caused him significant worry and regret at the time. However, as he reflects on these experiences, he sees them not as failures but as valuable lessons that helped shape him into a wiser and more resilient person. One of the stories Carnegie shares is about a business decision he made early in his career. He invested a significant amount of money in a venture without thoroughly researching the risks involved. When the venture failed, he was left with financial losses and a deep sense of regret. However, instead of letting this mistake haunt him, Carnegie chose to learn from it. He realized the importance of doing his homework before making major decisions and became much more cautious in his business dealings going forward. Carnegie emphasizes that everyone makes mistakes, and these mistakes are a natural part of life. Rather than dwelling on them or allowing them to cause ongoing worry, we should view them as opportunities to learn and grow. He argues that by accepting our mistakes and learning from them, we can reduce the worry they cause and move forward with greater confidence. The chapter offers practical advice on how to handle the mistakes we make. Carnegie suggests that when we realize we've made a mistake, we should first acknowledge it and take responsibility for it. This honesty with ourselves is the first step toward learning from the experience. Next, we should analyze what went wrong and identify the lessons we can take away from the situation. Finally, we should make a conscious decision to apply these lessons in the future, ensuring that we don't repeat the same mistakes. Carnegie also discusses the importance of forgiving ourselves for our mistakes. He notes that many people hold on to guilt and regret long after the mistake has been made, which only serves to prolong their worry and stress. By practicing self-forgiveness and focusing on the lessons learned, we can free ourselves from the emotional burden of our past errors. The chapter includes the story of a man who made a poor investment decision that led to significant financial losses. At first, the man was consumed by worry and regret, constantly replaying the decision in his mind and berating himself for his mistake. However, after some reflection, he realized that dwelling on the past was not helping him. He decided to forgive himself, learn from the experience, and move on. This shift in mindset allowed him to recover emotionally and eventually make better financial decisions in the future. Carnegie also touches on the idea that making mistakes is an essential part of growth and development. He argues that if we never make mistakes, it likely means we are not taking enough risks or challenging ourselves. By embracing our mistakes and the lessons they offer, we can continue to grow and improve in all areas of life. The chapter concludes with a reminder that no one is immune to making mistakes, but how we respond to them is what truly matters. By learning from our mistakes and using them as stepping stones to success, we can reduce worry and live a more fulfilling life. Carnegie encourages readers to reflect on their own fool things with a sense of humor and to see them as valuable experiences that contribute to their personal and professional growth. Chapter 23: How to add 1 hour a day to your waking life. Chapter 23 introduces a strategy for maximizing time and reducing stress by adding an extra hour to each day. This chapter focuses on the power of efficient time management and the benefits of adopting simple, yet effective habits to make the most of our waking hours. Carnegie begins by discussing the common feeling of being overwhelmed by the demands of daily life. Many people struggle to find enough time to complete their tasks, which leads to stress, worry, and a sense of being constantly behind. To combat this, Carnegie suggests a few key techniques that can help us gain more control over our time and even add an extra hour to our day. One of the main strategies Carnegie advocates is the use of a to-do list. He recommends starting each day by writing down the tasks that need to be accomplished. Prioritize these tasks by importance, focusing first on the most critical ones. By organizing your day in this way, you can work more efficiently and avoid the stress of trying to juggle multiple tasks without a clear plan. Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of delegating tasks when possible. He argues that many people waste time by trying to do everything themselves, even tasks that could be handled by others. By delegating responsibilities, particularly routine or less important tasks, you can free up time to focus on the activities that truly require your attention and expertise. The chapter includes a story about Ivy Lee, a business consultant who once gave a powerful piece of advice to Charles M. Schwab, the president of Bethlehem Steel Corporation. Lee suggested that Schwab start each day by writing down the 6 most important things he needed to accomplish, and then focus on completing them in order of priority. Schwab found this advice so valuable that he implemented it immediately, and saw a significant improvement in his productivity. This simple strategy not only helped Schwab manage his time better but also added a sense of accomplishment and control to his daily life. Another key technique Carnegie recommends is eliminating time-wasting activities. He points out that many people spend hours each day on unproductive activities such as excessive socializing, aimless internet browsing, or watching television. By identifying and reducing these time-wasting habits, you can reclaim valuable time that can be used for more meaningful and productive pursuits. Carnegie also discusses the benefits of focusing on one task at a time, rather than trying to multitask. He argues that multitasking often leads to decreased efficiency and increased stress, as our attention is divided among several activities. By dedicating your full attention to one task at a time, you can complete it more quickly and with better quality, ultimately saving time. The chapter also touches on the importance of rest and relaxation in maintaining productivity. Carnegie explains that taking regular breaks and getting sufficient sleep are crucial for maintaining energy levels and avoiding burnout. By ensuring that you are well rested, You can work more efficiently and effectively during your waking hours, thereby getting more done in less time. The chapter concludes with a reminder that time is one of our most valuable resources, and how we choose to use it has a direct impact on our success and well-being. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt the strategies outlined in the chapter to make the most of their time, reduce stress, and add an extra hour to their day. By doing so, they can achieve their goals more effectively and enjoy a greater sense of control and accomplishment in their lives. Chapter 24: What Makes You Tired, and What You Can Do About It. In Chapter 24, Carnegie addresses the issue of fatigue, exploring its causes and offering practical solutions for maintaining energy and vitality throughout the day. This chapter emphasizes the connection between physical and mental well-being and provides strategies for managing energy levels to reduce stress and improve productivity. Carnegie begins by discussing the various factors that contribute to fatigue, both physical and mental. He explains that while physical exertion can certainly lead to tiredness, mental and emotional stress are often the primary culprits behind chronic fatigue. Worry, frustration, and anxiety can drain our energy reserves, leaving us feeling exhausted even if we haven't engaged in much physical activity. One of the key points Carnegie makes is that our mental attitude plays a significant role in how tired we feel. He shares the story of a woman who was constantly exhausted despite not having a physically demanding job. After examining her daily routine, she realized that much of her fatigue was due to the stress and worry she carried with her throughout the day. By learning to manage her stress and adopting a more positive outlook, she was able to reduce her fatigue and regain her energy. Carnegie also discusses the importance of proper rest and relaxation in combating fatigue. He emphasizes that many people underestimate the value of taking breaks throughout the day to recharge. Short periods of rest, even just a few minutes, can have a significant impact on energy levels and overall productivity. He suggests scheduling regular breaks and making time for activities that help relax the mind, such as deep breathing exercises, meditation, or a brief walk. The chapter includes practical advice on how to manage physical fatigue as well. Carnegie highlights the importance of maintaining good posture, as poor posture can lead to unnecessary strain on the body, which contributes to tiredness. He advises readers to be mindful of their posture throughout the day, whether sitting at a desk, standing, or walking. Carnegie also touches on the role of nutrition in maintaining energy levels. He suggests that eating a balanced diet, rich in nutrients, can help prevent energy slumps and keep the body functioning optimally. He advises against overeating or consuming heavy meals during the day, as this can lead to sluggishness and fatigue. Instead, he recommends eating smaller, more frequent meals that provide a steady supply of energy. Exercise is another key component of managing fatigue that Carnegie discusses. Regular physical activity helps improve circulation, boost energy levels, and reduce stress. He encourages readers to incorporate some form of exercise into their daily routine, whether it's a brisk walk, a workout at the gym, or even simple stretching exercises. The chapter also explores the impact of sleep on energy levels. Carnegie emphasizes that getting enough sleep is crucial for maintaining physical and mental health. He advises readers to establish a regular sleep schedule and to create a relaxing bedtime routine that helps ensure a good night's rest. Adequate sleep allows the body and mind to recover from the day's activities and prepares us to face the next day with renewed energy. Carnegie concludes the chapter by reminding readers that managing fatigue is about balancing work, rest, and relaxation. By taking care of our physical and mental well-being, we can maintain higher energy levels, reduce stress, and improve our overall quality of life. He encourages readers to apply the strategies outlined in the chapter to keep fatigue at bay and enjoy a more productive and fulfilling life. Chapter 25: How the Housewife Can Avoid Fatigue and Keep Looking Young. Chapter 25 focuses on the specific challenges faced by housewives and homemakers, offering advice on how they can manage fatigue, maintain their energy, and preserve their youthfulness. This chapter highlights the importance of self-care and efficient time management in reducing stress and improving well-being. Carnegie begins by acknowledging the often overlooked demands of managing a household. He explains that housework, while not always physically strenuous, can be mentally and emotionally exhausting. The repetitive nature of chores, coupled with the pressure to keep everything running smoothly, can lead to feelings of fatigue and burnout. One of the key strategies Carnegie suggests for avoiding fatigue is the importance of pacing oneself. He advises housewives to avoid trying to do everything at once and to resist the urge to overwork themselves. By breaking tasks down into smaller, more manageable pieces and spreading them out over the day, they can prevent burnout and maintain their energy levels. Carnegie also recommends taking short breaks between tasks to rest and recharge, which can help maintain a steady level of productivity throughout the day. Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of getting outside help when needed. He points out that many housewives feel the need to do everything themselves, often at the expense of their health and well-being. He encourages them to delegate tasks to other family members or to hire help if possible. By sharing the workload, they can reduce their stress and have more time for rest and relaxation. Another important aspect of avoiding fatigue is maintaining a positive mental attitude. Carnegie suggests that housewives take pride in their work and find satisfaction in the tasks they perform. By viewing their work as valuable and meaningful, they can boost their morale and reduce feelings of fatigue. He also encourages them to focus on the positive aspects of their lives and to avoid dwelling on the negatives. The chapter also touches on the importance of self-care for maintaining energy and youthfulness. Carnegie advises housewives to make time for themselves each day, whether it's through a hobby, exercise, or simply relaxing. He points out that taking care of oneself is not selfish but necessary for maintaining physical and mental health. By investing in their well-being, they can better care for their families and manage their responsibilities. Carnegie also discusses the role of nutrition in avoiding fatigue and staying youthful. He recommends eating a balanced diet that includes plenty of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. He advises against relying on caffeine or sugar for quick energy boosts, as these can lead to energy crashes later in the day. Instead, he suggests eating regular, balanced meals that provide sustained energy. Exercise is another key component of staying youthful and energetic. Carnegie encourages housewives to incorporate physical activity into their daily routine, whether it's through structured exercise or simply staying active throughout the day. Exercise helps improve circulation, reduce stress, and boost energy levels, all of which contribute to a more youthful appearance and a more energetic life. The chapter concludes with a reminder that managing a household is a demanding job, but by taking care of themselves and adopting efficient strategies, housewives can avoid fatigue and maintain their energy and vitality. Carnegie encourages readers to apply the tips and strategies outlined in the chapter to create a more balanced, fulfilling life that allows them to keep looking and feeling their best. Chapter 26: 4 Good Working Habits That Will Help Prevent Fatigue and Worry. In Chapter 26, Dale Carnegie introduces 4 key working habits that can help prevent fatigue and reduce worry, whether in the workplace or in daily life. This chapter focuses on developing efficient routines and adopting a mindset that promotes productivity and well-being. Carnegie begins by discussing the importance of developing good working habits as a way to conserve energy and prevent burnout. He explains that many people experience fatigue and stress not because of the amount of work they do, but because of how they approach their tasks. By adopting more efficient and thoughtful work habits, we can reduce the mental and physical strain that leads to fatigue. The first habit Carnegie recommends is clear thinking. He emphasizes the importance of organizing our thoughts before we begin a task. Many people waste time and energy by approaching their work haphazardly, which leads to confusion and mistakes. By taking a few moments to plan and clarify our goals, we can work more efficiently and avoid unnecessary stress. Carnegie suggests starting each task by asking, "What is the objective?" and "What is the best way to achieve it?" This simple mental preparation can help streamline our work and reduce fatigue. The second habit is efficient use of time. Carnegie discusses the importance of prioritizing tasks and focusing on the most important ones first. He argues that many people become overwhelmed by trying to tackle everything at once, which leads to stress and fatigue. Instead, he suggests identifying the most critical tasks and addressing them first, while less important tasks can be handled later or delegated. This approach not only improves productivity but also helps prevent the buildup of stress. The third habit is delegation. Carnegie points out that many people, particularly those in leadership positions, feel the need to handle everything themselves. This often leads to burnout and frustration. By delegating tasks to others, we can free up time and energy for the tasks that truly require our attention. Carnegie advises identifying tasks that can be handled by others and delegating them accordingly, allowing us to focus on what we do best. The fourth habit is taking breaks. Carnegie stresses the importance of regular breaks to rest and recharge. He explains that working continuously without breaks can lead to diminished productivity and increased fatigue. By scheduling short breaks throughout the day, we can maintain our energy levels and keep our minds fresh. He suggests stepping away from work every hour or so, even if it's just for a few minutes, to stretch, walk around, or relax. These breaks help prevent the buildup of stress and keep us more alert and productive. Carnegie also discusses the psychological benefits of these working habits. He explains that by adopting clear thinking, efficient time management, delegation, and regular breaks, we can reduce the mental clutter and stress that often accompany work. This not only helps prevent fatigue but also improves our overall well-being and job satisfaction. The chapter concludes with a reminder that good working habits are essential for maintaining energy and reducing worry. By implementing the 4 habits outlined in the chapter, we can create a more balanced and efficient work routine that promotes both productivity and well-being. Carnegie encourages readers to reflect on their current work habits and to consider how they might adopt these practices to improve their daily lives. Chapter 27: How to Banish the Boredom That Produces Fatigue, Worry, and Resentment. In Chapter 27, Carnegie addresses the issue of boredom and its connection to fatigue, worry, and resentment. This chapter focuses on strategies for staying engaged and motivated, even in routine or monotonous tasks, to prevent these negative emotions from taking hold. Carnegie begins by discussing the concept of boredom as a common cause of fatigue and dissatisfaction. He explains that boredom often arises from repetitive tasks or a lack of challenge in our daily routines. When we are bored, we are more likely to feel tired, stressed, and resentful, which can lead to a decline in both our productivity and our overall happiness. One of the key strategies Carnegie suggests for banishing boredom is to find interest in your work. He argues that even the most routine tasks can be made interesting if we approach them with the right mindset. By looking for ways to improve efficiency, set new goals, or learn something new, we can transform mundane tasks into opportunities for growth and engagement. Carnegie advises readers to challenge themselves to find new ways to approach their work, whether it's by setting a personal record, experimenting with different methods, or focusing on the details that make the task meaningful. The chapter also discusses the importance of variety in preventing boredom. Carnegie suggests that we incorporate a mix of different activities into our daily routines to keep our minds stimulated and engaged. This might involve alternating between different types of tasks, breaking up long periods of concentration with short bursts of physical activity, or simply varying the environment in which we work. By introducing variety, we can keep our minds fresh and avoid the mental fatigue that comes from doing the same thing for extended periods. Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of personal growth and development as a way to combat boredom. He encourages readers to continuously seek out opportunities to learn and improve, whether it's through formal education, reading, or taking on new challenges at work. By focusing on personal growth, we can maintain a sense of purpose and motivation, even when our daily tasks become routine. The chapter includes the story of a factory worker who was bored and dissatisfied with his job. Instead of continuing to resent his work, he decided to learn everything he could about the machines he operated. Over time, he became an expert in his field, which not only made his work more interesting but also led to promotions and increased job satisfaction. This story illustrates how finding interest and seeking personal growth in our work can transform even the most routine tasks. Carnegie also touches on the importance of setting goals to maintain motivation. He suggests that setting both short-term and long-term goals can provide a sense of direction and purpose, which helps prevent boredom. By working towards specific objectives, we can stay focused and engaged, even when the tasks themselves are not inherently exciting. The chapter concludes with a reminder that boredom is often a sign that we need to make a change in how we approach our work. By finding interest, introducing variety, focusing on personal growth, and setting goals, we can banish boredom and the fatigue, worry, and resentment that come with it. Carnegie encourages readers to apply these strategies to stay motivated and energized in their daily lives. Chapter 28: How to Keep from Worrying About Insomnia. In the final chapter, Carnegie tackles the issue of insomnia, a common problem that often leads to a vicious cycle of worry and sleeplessness. This chapter provides practical advice on how to manage insomnia by addressing both the physical and mental aspects of sleep. Carnegie begins by acknowledging that insomnia is a frustrating and often debilitating condition that affects many people. The inability to sleep can lead to increased worry, which in turn makes it even harder to fall asleep, creating a cycle that can be difficult to break. However, Carnegie argues that much of the worry associated with insomnia is unnecessary and can be alleviated with a change in perspective. One of the first points Carnegie makes is that worrying about not sleeping is often worse than the lack of sleep itself. He explains that the more we stress about not being able to sleep, the more likely we are to stay awake. This anxiety creates a mental barrier to sleep, making it even harder to relax and drift off. Carnegie suggests that instead of worrying about the consequences of insomnia, we should accept it as a temporary inconvenience and not let it dominate our thoughts. The chapter offers several strategies for reducing the worry associated with insomnia. One approach Carnegie recommends is focusing on relaxation rather than sleep. He explains that even if we can't fall asleep, simply resting and relaxing in bed can be beneficial. By shifting our focus from the need to sleep to the act of relaxing, we can reduce the anxiety that keeps us awake. Carnegie advises practicing deep breathing, meditation, or visualization techniques to help calm the mind and body. Carnegie also discusses the importance of establishing a regular sleep routine. He suggests going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends, to help regulate the body's internal clock. This routine can help signal to the body that it's time to sleep, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. The chapter includes practical advice on how to create a sleep-friendly environment. Carnegie recommends keeping the bedroom cool, dark, and quiet, as these conditions are conducive to sleep. He also advises against using the bed for activities other than sleep, such as watching TV or working, as this can create associations that make it harder to fall asleep. Carnegie also touches on the idea of letting go of perfectionism when it comes to sleep. He explains that many people worry about getting the perfect amount of sleep each night, which can create unnecessary pressure and anxiety. Instead, he suggests that we focus on getting the best sleep we can, even if it's not the ideal amount. By lowering our expectations and being kinder to ourselves, we can reduce the stress associated with insomnia. The chapter concludes with a reminder that while insomnia can be frustrating, it doesn't have to control our lives. By adopting a more relaxed attitude towards sleep and implementing the strategies outlined in the chapter, we can reduce the worry that often exacerbates insomnia and improve our chances of getting a good night's rest. Carnegie encourages readers to approach sleep with a calm and accepting mindset, which can help break the cycle of worry and sleeplessness. Conclusion. A final word from Dale Carnegie in the conclusion of How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Dale Carnegie reflects on the key themes of the book and offers final words of encouragement to his readers. He emphasizes the importance of applying the principles discussed throughout the book to reduce worry, improve well-being, and lead a more fulfilling life. Carnegie reiterates that worry is a natural part of life, but it doesn't have to dominate our thoughts or dictate our actions. By adopting the strategies outlined in the book, such as living in tight compartments, focusing on what we can control, embracing a positive attitude, and practicing self-care, we can effectively manage worry and prevent it from undermining our happiness and success. He also emphasizes the value of taking action. Carnegie reminds readers that knowledge alone is not enough. It's the application of that knowledge that leads to real change. He encourages readers to actively incorporate the book's teachings into their daily lives, to experiment with the techniques, and to find what works best for them. Carnegie concludes with a message of hope and empowerment. He believes that by following the principles in the book, anyone can transform their life, overcome worry, and achieve greater peace of mind. He expresses his confidence in the reader's ability to apply these lessons and encourages them to take control of their life, live with purpose, and enjoy the journey. Thank you for joining our quest for infinite growth. If you enjoyed this, please like and follow Infinite Self-Improvement on all social media and podcasts. We'll see you soon, but until then, remember that your potential is infinite.